Okay, hi everyone. My name is Brian Brenniger. I'm a director of engineering on the Journey Builder team in Marketing Cloud. And today I'm here to talk to you about building custom activities inside of Journey Builder. Like every Salesforce presentation, we're going to start with the forward-looking statement. And then I want to make sure everyone's aware that I'm going to talk a little bit about things we're going to do in the future. So you should make all of your purchasing decisions based on what's available today. What we can do. Primarily, I'll be focused on what we can do in the app today. I'm going to start with some background on what Journey Builder is in the Marketing Cloud, how custom activities work, and then I'm going to break all the rules. I'm going to drop out of my slideshow. I'm going to do a live coding presentation as a manager on conference center Wi-Fi. We'll see how that goes. It'll be at least entertaining, and then we'll come back and do those forward-looking statements, future things that we're thinking about. Some of the feedback we've gotten. All right, so Journey Builder, what is it? Journey Builder is a marketing automation tool that lets you take individuals, send them into a marketing automation flow. Based on those individuals' actions, you can send messages, how they react to those messages, because you can send other messages. You can update data in Sales and Service Cloud, and you can actually extend it with custom activities, which is what we're here to talk about today. The building blocks of a journey are these custom activities. They're little icons that you'll see on the canvas. They represent sending an email, sending an SMS message, making a decision based on some attribute of a person. Did the person interact in a certain way? We have some new Einstein activities that are live or coming out in the next few releases that let you use artificial intelligence to decide how someone works or flows through the journey. An example journey here. Actually, this morning I called my kids and I asked my son, he's 4, what should I do to get people to come to my session? And he said, sing a really loud song. So I won't do that because I'm a terrible singer. But maybe if I had a real marketing company, they'd come up with something like this. This is a Trailhead DX journey. I've got an entry source, so everybody that signs up for Trailhead DX would go into this journey. I'd send them an email saying, hey, come to my session. It's going to be great. And then wait a couple days. For those people that didn't click or engage with that email, I'll send them down a path, send them a second email, really encouraging them to come. Maybe I'll tell them I'm going to sing that song, really get them interested in coming. If they do click on this and they do engage with my email, I want to send them down a different path. And what I'd really like to do is set up some training materials in a Heroku app. Journey Builder doesn't support that out of the box. And that's where custom activities come in. So custom activities let you do anything you want inside of the context of a journey by building a custom activity. You can connect to existing systems that you have. Some examples might be like working with a loyalty provider to look up if someone is a platinum member or a gold member and send them down different paths. You could also use it to look up like a coupon code that's specific to an individual, add that into the journey, and then send that out in a message saying, hey, we've created this specific coupon for you. But anything that you would want to do, you can do inside of a custom activity. So when you build a custom activity, it becomes a new type of icon. So here you can see there's a Heroku activity added after that split. That's available for your marketers to use in any journey. So if you as a developer build a custom activity, it shows up in the panel of activities that marketers can use in all of their journeys. So I'm going to switch now and talk about kind of how you build one of these, what the things you're going to build are. And there's two real key parts to it. There's building the design time, which is what the marketer is using when they're configuring this inside of Journey Builder. So it's a UI, it's an HTML, JavaScript thing that runs, and we host that, or you host that, and we load that inside of the Journey Builder application to configure it. And then there's the runtime, which for custom activities is a REST API endpoint that Journey Builder will call when a contact is flowing through the journey and reaches that activity. The job of the design time is to describe through this JSON configuration how the engine should run, like what data it should send to that REST API endpoint. So you really have to build both sides of this as a custom activity developer. I mentioned the design time is responsible for building that JSON configuration. It's loaded as an iframe, so you're going to host a little web app, a HTML page. We're going to load that as an iframe inside of Journey Builder. And then using something called post messages, which is a frame-to-frame communication protocol in web browsers, you're going to retrieve the current state of your activity, modify it to add whatever information the marketer's configuring, and then send it back to Journey Builder. There's lots of other things you can do in there, resize the window and some other things, but primarily your job is to load whatever existing configuration we have, allow the marketer to modify it, and then send it back to Journey Builder. So at runtime, when the contact enters the journey, a contact can enter through a Salesforce event, like maybe something happens in your Sales Cloud. It could be a data extension, which is a set of contacts that you say, I want to send all these people into a journey at the same time. It could be based on some kind of API, a system that you have calls and triggers something, a person made a purchase and you want to start them on the journey. So those folks enter the journey, they reach your custom activity, and then based on that custom activity configuration you've created, Journey Builder goes and collects all the data that we need to call your REST API endpoint. And that comes from the Marketing Cloud contact model. And then makes an API call off to your REST endpoint. In my example, I'm actually going to use I think it's called request bin, just some tool that receives API calls so we can log it. But you could receive that. You might store the data that you receive to do something with. You might look up other data. You might call off to a third-party system altogether from that custom activity. So then your custom activity could retrieve data and return that data back to Journey Builder. In the coupon code example I mentioned, this could be looking up a coupon code, and then passes that on to downstream activity so they can do something with it. We have something called a REST decision, which is a slight variation, kind of the loyalty program, platinum or gold members that I talked about. And if you return a specific attribute called a branch result, you can control the path that the person takes out of your custom activity. All right, so now that's kind of the background. Now we're going to jump out of this presentation and try to build one of these things. Actually, I kind of lied. I've already written the code, but we'll walk through the code. We'll try to deploy it, see if we can make it work. First thing that we have to do is register it with Marketing Cloud. So we're telling Marketing Cloud there is a new activity that exists. Then we are going to look at the code. We'll deploy that code to Heroku and see if we can make it work. All right, so I'm in my Marketing Cloud account. And as an administrator, I'm going to go into Setup. Setup's where you do all of your administration, configuration of your account. And as an administrator or developer, under Apps, you can create something called an installed package. An installed package in Marketing Cloud is a container for like extensions and extension functionality. So I'll create one called a sample Trailhead DX package. And then I have to add components to this. Components are the specific types of functionality that I want to extend Marketing Cloud with. An API integration, if I wanted to call back into Marketing Cloud APIs, I could create that. I can create a Marketing Cloud app that actually appears here in the navigation. Today, what I want to create is a Journey Builder activity. Journey Builder activity, you just give it a name. We'll call it the activity. You pick a category where it fits in the navigation in Journey Builder, and then an endpoint. So the endpoint is where Journey Builder will load that iframe in the canvas. That's where the marketer will be doing this configuration. So that's kind of the key entry point. Here I'm putting in sampleactivity.herokuapp.com. We'll need to reference that in a bit. You could do these in a different order, but this I think is a good way to explain it. So now I've created an activity. I'm going to jump over into Journey Builder and see what happens. I'll create a new journey. And I get this error that one or more custom activities failed to load. That's because nothing actually exists at sampleactivity.herokuapp.com. We haven't built that yet. So now we'll jump into some code and we'll actually get something there and see if we can make that message go away and a new activity appear in the canvas. So let's see, make this a little bigger. I'm actually deploying this as a Node.js app, but the resources that I'm deploying are just static HTML, CSS, JavaScript images. You could put these in any kind of web server. The initial thing you have to create is called a config.json. This tells Journey Builder some of the minimal information it knows to load your activity, this needs to be hosted at the root of that URL, the sampleactivity.herokuapp.com that I provided earlier. This is providing a workflow API version. This tells Journey Builder how you're going to interact with the canvas. Some information about the icon you want to use. So I'm specifying I just want to use a PNG file. This would be a REST activity. This is where I could change it to that REST decision if I wanted to have multiple paths. And then the initial size of the window. I don't have to specify this, but I would like to have a medium window. So that's my initial configuration. Then I've got my icon. I just designed Heroku icon all by myself. And then I'm building an HTML page. So this is what's going to be loaded in that iframe. Now, normally as a developer, you're going to want to build some kind of interface that makes it easy for the marketer to configure the data they want sent to that REST API. But because we're at a developer conference and I've only got like 9 more minutes, I'm going to build just a text area that shows that raw JSON configuration that we would generate. So you can see I've got a text area here called configuration. I'm pulling in an open source library called Postmonger that manages the frame-to-frame communication. It makes it a little easier to do. And then I have an activity.js file. My styling on this is very minimal, but you could use the Lightning design system to make this look and feel like a Salesforce application. My activity.json or activity.js, this is really the minimal guts of an activity that you would have to have, has a initializes that Postmonger library. That's kind of establishing the connection between my iframe and the Journey Builder canvas. And then I trigger this ready event to tell Journey Builder, hey, my activity's here, send me whatever I need to know. Journey Builder responds back with this init activity that says, here's all the data that we have saved. This could have been saved the previous time if someone's already opened and configured your activity, or this could have come from the config JSON when they first open and initialize it. And then all I'm doing with that is taking that data and putting it into that text area. This is where you would do something creative if you're more creative than me. And then at the end of this, when the user clicks done, Journey Builder will trigger this event called click next to us, telling us that the marketer is done configuring the activity. What I'm doing is reaching back into that text area, grabbing the configuration, turning it into JSON, and then sending that back to Journey Builder using an update activity event. So there's like 4 different signals that are happening here. We're telling Journey Builder we're ready. They send us a configuration. We modify that configuration and send it back. So that's really all of the code that I've got. Let's go ahead and get that deployed. So my app was called Heroku Sample Activity. Hopefully that name's not taken. We'll need a minute. All right, so I've created something on Heroku. Heroku's Salesforce platform as a service. You can host like Java, Node.js, all kinds of apps there. Heroku handles scaling the activities. It's a really great and amazing place to host content. So I put that. Now I want to push all this code that I was showing you to Heroku. I use git commands to do that. So this is taking my activity code, deploying it out to Heroku. This took about 20 seconds in my test the other day, so it looks like that worked. Now I'm going to jump over here. This is my sampleactivity.herokuapp.com. Let me reload that. So something's there now, but I want to see this inside of Journey Builder. So I'm going to reload Journey Builder, look at my canvas, and hopefully we see this activity now and not that red error message. We do. So we've got a new custom activity that we've deployed. It's running inside of Journey Builder. I'm going to drag that onto the canvas. Click it. I can see this. This is really hard to read, and I've created a configuration that I'll use to talk through this about what you would actually generate as a developer. The main thing that you're specifying is what data to send to that REST API endpoint and what API endpoint to call. So those are populated in something called arguments and then execute. That's what Journey Builder is doing when a person runs through it. It's executing your activity. And the in arguments are the things that we want to send to our REST API. And those are collections of attributes from your contact model. So I'm going to pull in my contact key, which is the identifier of a person in Marketing Cloud, and this first name and last name attribute that I know is registered in my account. You probably would interact with Marketing Cloud APIs to interrogate kind of the accounts that are there to figure out what attributes you'd want to configure. And then last, I'm telling Journey Builder to call this request bin URL when my activity executes. You can, by default, these are just unauthenticated REST API calls. You can use a signed JOT to actually send over a signed authenticated request as well. So I'm going to take all of this JSON and just paste it in here. I'll save that. And then I need an entry source. So I've created a data extension with a couple people in it. I'll use a data extension entry source called Journey Entry Source. I click that. And we'll configure this to just send all the people in as soon as the journey is activated. Whenever you create a journey in Journey Builder, you have to specify these journey entry settings. That decides if a person can be in this journey multiple times. Maybe it's like a transactional type thing and it's okay for them to get the same messages over and over, versus something where you only want them to see it once ever, or once as long as they're in the journey, they can't be in the same journey again. So we'll say they can re-enter at any time, and we'll try to activate this. So what happens when we're activating this is Journey Builder is actually creating an automation, if you're familiar with Marketing Cloud, that will process this, process that data extension. I think we can actually see it if we go into Automation Studio. Yep, so that's actually running right now, and that's injecting people from my data extension. So I'll let that run. One thing that I didn't cover, but I think is important, when you build this activity, initially you as the developer will be the only user in your account that can see it. But from that installed packages screen, when we're looking at our package, we can see access. We can add additional users, and those would be users within my account. So if I'm building an activity for my company, I can license it, is what we call that, through this screen. If I wanted to build something that was available to others, like I'm a partner and I want to make my service available to all Marketing Cloud customers, you can do that through the partner community and have your activity published on App Exchange. There's actually a talk at 1 p.m. over in the App Exchange Theater where they're going to talk through that process of how to get a partner account and build things and deploy things as a partner. So I recommend that if you're interested there. Let's see if our journey has actually fired off. Looks like we've got a couple entries, so a couple people have gone through my journey. So now I'm going to jump over to that request bin tool and reload this. And we should see a few things that just came through. So the main thing we want to look at are these execute endpoints. So this is the REST API call was made from Journey Builder to this endpoint. It includes the attributes that I specified in that config JSON, but now they're populated. Instead of just saying first name, it has Brian, last name has Brenniger. There were 2 people in this thing, so my other person is my friend Fred. So those came through, and that activity could do whatever it wants. We're just capturing the data here. So that's pretty much it. We've built an activity. We've seen how it would call into your back end. You would have to do whatever you want to do inside of there. Jump down here. Jump back into this presentation. So some of the things that, like, we built something, not a perfect activity, but we built something pretty quickly. It's usable. This is how we build all of our activities inside of Marketing Cloud. There we go. But there are things that we can do to improve it. Like, I really don't like that you have to host that configuration in a structured manner. I'd love for that to just go away. That's something that we're working on, is how can we make an activity where as a developer you don't hit these blocks where you get a red error message that says something didn't work and we tell you what to do next. We're also looking at building like those frame-to-frame communications. You have to manage those events today. We want to build an SDK that would actually allow you to interact like through methods that you could read the SDK code and know what to call or kind of make logical guesses as a developer. I think it would be really cool. The MuleSoft demo we just saw, like we should have a MuleSoft activity where MuleSoft can do some of the work. And then lastly, like we're Salesforce, we want to do clicks, not code. So a no-code activity where you can kind of configure a REST endpoint and the data that you want to send without having to write any code would be really awesome in my view. So that's something we're thinking about. Can't promise it, but if you have feedback, I'll be in the Marketing Cloud booth this afternoon from like 1 p.m. to 3 or 4 or something. I'd love to hear your ideas. If there's things that you'd like to build in Journey Builder or questions that you have, feel free to stop by. There's some resources that you can pretty much just search for building custom activities in Journey Builder, and you'll get to all of these pages. And lastly, we have a Marketing Cloud Salesforce developer certification that's brand new, super exciting. You should take that if you're interested in these type of things. So thanks so much for attending. If you want to stick around, I'll sing. No, just kidding.